Welcome back to 7 Moons Astrology. I'm Sarah Kirby. Today we're talking about the evolution of astrological energy. That is to say, the evolution of consciousness. At least as I see it anyway. This is stuff that I think about all the time. The why of astrology. If you follow astrology, if you're interested in it, you can see at least that it is anecdotally true, right? That it's demonstratively true for our own collective and individual psychological experiences. And if you ponder that long enough, you begin to wonder, well, why is that? And this is the more spiritual, esoteric principles behind astrology. If the universe really does work this way, then why? What would be the point? And to me, it's really no different than biological life and the scientific principle of evolution. If biology evolves, well, everything is energy. Energy is evolving. And so consciousness is also evolving. Now, I have the native zodiac up on the screen. This is the basic astrology zodiac wheel for nobody in particular. It's just all the 12 signs associated and tied to their natural positions by house. And one energy compensates for the next. The weaknesses of one sign are compensated for in the next sign, and the strengths are pulled forward so that through the 12 signs, we can experience full alchemy of consciousness, full God consciousness. I think that's the point anyway. And I'm going to illustrate that to you by walking through each of the signs and talking about some of the stereotypical weaknesses and strengths, and then how the next sign picks up where the last left off. And this is, again, it's just stereotypical, the associations and signatures of each sign. Of course, each of us manifests these energies in an individual way because we are not just one energy, we are not just one sign. We have our big three, the sun, moon, and rising, which are very predominant, but many of us have stelliums where we have a lot of energy in one other sign, or we have, nobody has all their planets in one sign, so we've got energy that is a mixture of all the different 12 signs. And all of that's important and colors our individual manifestation as a character, as a role, as a soul contract through this incarnation. And I think the reason, my hunch about this, my intuition is that we live as many seemingly infinite incarnations, or you can think of it as a timeline, iteration of our individual consciousness as needed, as a collective, to experience every single possible combination, permutation of energy. I mean, it's seemingly infinite. I'm not even going to do that math because you have every different planet and asteroid, and even perhaps the ones that we are not aware of, at every single possible degree of the zodiac. There's 360 degrees, every possible combination. I think that is the point of this experiment that is life. And each of us will embody a certain moment in time in the wheel of time measured by the movement of the planetary and celestial bodies. So let's talk about this because I think it's just so fascinating. And it's not to say that one sign is better than the other or one sign is more evolved than the other. That's not the point, because it is of course a cycle. And so the 12th energy is not per se the most evolved because it still has weaknesses that the first energy compensates for. Okay, we'll talk about that. I'm getting ahead of myself. So, okay, look at this. First energy, first house, first sign, Aries. Aries is about the self. It's about man. It's about the will of self and the own direction. It's a cardinal energy that is masculine, that is focused on exerting its own will, desires, and perspectives onto the world, making things happen, achieving ambition, fighting, warrior energy. It's the start. It's the springtime. It's the birth and the bloom of the first impulse of creation. That is what Aries energy is all about. And as a consequence, Aries energy, Aries people with a lot of Aries dominance can be impulsive. They can be all about starting things and never following through, never finishing things. That's like characteristic Aries. They move really quickly, and as a result, they can be very urgent. They can feel very anxious. They can be having to go back and redo things constantly because they're just like moving too quickly. Okay, well, then we evolve that energy. We move on to Taurus. And once we move on to Taurus, well, Taurus is all about taking the energy of the self, and what we've learned with Aries is who we are, my own will, my own opinion, my own perspective. And Taurus carries that through. And it slows down. It compensates for the weaknesses of being too fast, too impulsive, and never following through. And it gets, like a bull, super focused. It gets things done. It's extremely hardworking. It's very determined. It is very focused on the task at hand, and it does follow through over a long period of time. It's about doing things in a slow, methodical, practical, and determined way so that you can build something sustainable in the long term. And it carries forward and matures the idea of the self in the individual by being way too stubborn, way too set in its perspectives, way too stuck in its ways, right? My way or the highway is a classical Taurus fault, weakness, shadow manifestation, whatever you want to call that. So then what happens is we move into Gemini. Well, that's the first air sign of the zodiac. And we speed up again, but we speed up in the mind. We speed up in the mind. So it's about being open-minded. It's about being flexible, curious, explorative, interested in ideas, interested in people, interested in the multitude of ways that things can occur, and ideating about that. But it becomes so intellectual in its approach that it can forget the emotional side of things. Now, I'm a Gemini, so I can say from experience that people either love you or hate you. Like sometimes people find that Gemini people are way too, that they can have like a mean or abrasive side. And I think that that's because Gemini is really focused on the intellect. It can be very rational, can be very simply focused on the facts. And it can forget to take into account the emotions and the people. And that's what Cancer does so well, right? So Cancer is the fourth house in the natural zodiac. The fourth house is about our inner world. It's about our foundation and connection with our family. It's about supporting people. It's about nurturing other people. And it is a very emotional, intuitive sign. The first water sign of the zodiac is flooded with deep emotional awareness. The strength of their emotions can be so strong that they can get really closed off. They can really shut down, and they have that Cancerian shell. So there's this, the Cancer archetype is a soft inside with a very hard outer shell to protect that soft sensitivity. So where they excel at nurturing other people, being supportive, they can fall short in the sense that they can be very guarded, and they can be, let's say, too easy, too thin-skinned, essentially, right? Too easy to offend. And Leo makes up for that by being the most open-hearted sign of the zodiac. It is known as being the open-hearted, generous, loving, unconditionally authentic sign, right? Leos shine and they don't care what you think about them. They have gotten over the insecurity that's associated with Cancer by being super proud. And that has its downsides as well, right? Because Leo, well, what are they known for on the shadow manifestation? It's being dramatic, being the center of attention. Me, being showy and flashy and theatrical and wanting all of the attention. So what was once guarded is now right in the spotlight, right? So what does Virgo do to compensate for that flashiness is, well, Virgo is known for being very humble. And I should say also that if we go back to Leo, Leo is about creativity. It's about fun. It's about what I want to do because I enjoy it and it brings me joy. And it's about creative, explorative power. Then we move into Virgo, and Virgo is like, well, I'm done with being flashy. I'm going to be humble. I'm going to focus my efforts on being of service to other people. That's what Virgo is all about. And the way in which it does it is not by creative efforts, but again, back to that intellectual, rational, logical work-oriented pursuit. Let me get the details organized for you. Let me take chaos of creation. Let me take the chaos of creation and order it. Let me order it. And let me do so in a way that is quietly, humbly of service. But because Virgo is so concerned with the details, right? Because Virgo is so concerned with the details, it can get caught up in worry. It can get caught up in being into everybody's business. It can become nosy, gossipy, judgmental, critical, because there is a very detailed, well thought out way in which things should be done in order to be the most orderly and efficient, right? That's where the Virgo energy can fall short. And when we move on to Libra, we take balance of that. Libra is all about balance. What we have learned as an individual is now coming into balance with how we consider other people. Libra is about fairness, justice, balance. It's about me versus you. And finally, we're at the point here where we have completed an evolution through the bottom half of the zodiac, the inner world. Me, what I want, what I do, my resources and how I sustain myself, my ideas, my emotions, my creative power, my service to other people. Now that we've moved through our inner world, right? Me, my money, my ideas, my home, my family, my joy, my creativity, my romance, my work, my health. Now we're here at true balance, which is Libra versus Aries. Libra is finding the right way to consider myself and the other person, considering all sides, considering all approaches, keeping the peace, finding compromise, finding solutions. How does Libra fall short? Well, Libra is also known for beauty and luxury. And Libra can fall short by placating and people pleasing, being so interested in maintaining peace and harmony among people that we are not really able to touch depth. We keep things surface level so that we can keep things fair and harmonious. And so Scorpio makes up for that. Scorpio makes up for that by being deeply concerned with our depths, what's lying underneath. It wants to know you deeply. It wants the deepest intimacy. It wants to take partnership. It is about partnership. It wants to take partnership and it wants to see how it can collaborate to share power and to find the truest sense of vulnerability and intimacy and understand the depths of not just my psychological motivations, but yours as well. How can we share and support each other for an even exchange of power? But it can fall short in the sense that it is so concerned with what you're thinking and feeling and what your motivations are that it can be a little bit suspicious, it can be a little bit secretive, and there can be issues of power play and control and manipulation that commonly manifest with this energy. So how do we compensate for that? Well, we compensate for that with Sagittarius energy. It's no longer about control. It's about ultimate freedom. It's about ultimate truth. It is about the higher power that actually manifests reality rather than my control and my power and your control and your power. It's about the ultimate universal power. It's about spiritual integration, truth, freedom, exploration, growth, and evolution. But because it is so concerned with the independence and the freedom and what is true and what is evolving, that the grass always looks greener on the other side. And so Sagittarius is restless and always reaching for that next best thing. And because of that, it can avoid committing to what is true and what is stable. It can avoid committing to responsibility because it just wants to move on to what seems to be better off in the distance. And so Capricorn comes in and says, let's slow things down. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Capricorn is work-oriented. Let's take responsibility. Let's take commitment. Let's rise to a sense of inner authority that manifests as outer authority by taking things really seriously. There's a sense of inner duty, inner responsibility for making the right choice. It takes this wisdom of Sagittarius, this universal wisdom, and it matures it. Where does it fall short? Well, it gets too rigid. It gets too serious. It gets too conventional. It gets too traditional. And it loses that sense of open-mindedness that when you move on to Aquarius, Aquarius is all about the open mind again. So Aquarius is about new ideas. Aquarius is about the future of ideas. Aquarius is about how I can exist in a collective world with my own originality and what's true for me. And because it is so interested in doing that in a collective society and wants everybody to be free, it rebels against any collective ideas that can be seen as oppressive. And so it can be a little bit chaotic. It's the total opposite of conventional. It's completely unorthodox. Goes against the grain in a way where it's concerned with finding its separate individual ego within a group, and it becomes very, very rebellious, right? It becomes unexpected and unorthodox. Pisces makes up for that by finding the ultimate compassion, the ultimate unity, oneness, connection of all people. It's God consciousness, it's universal consciousness, and it is the sum of every energy before it, right? Pisces is the sum of all energies. If Pisces is the sum of all energies, Pisces can access every strength and every weakness of every energy before it. Pisces is Christ consciousness. Pisces energy is associated with Christ. We were in the age of Pisces. We are presently in the age of Pisces, transitioning into the age of Aquarius, and the age of Pisces is associated with Christ and the timeline of Christianity, essentially, and concepts like sacrifice, victimhood, martyrdom, compassion. So where does Pisces get its short? Well, Pisces is constantly lost in the oneness, the ocean of the oneness. Pisces is constantly floating without true ground of self and constantly losing itself among other universal energies, right? And because of that, Pisces is about dream realities. It's about escapism. It's about getting caught up in restful, meditative, or altered states of consciousness. And one of the things that is classically associated with Pisces is not because the heart is so big and the universe is so connected and we feel everything that everybody feels because we struggle with boundaries. There can be a sense of not having a strong enough personal will to survive life on Earth. And that's what takes us back to Aries. Aries brings the will of self, the will of I, the will of the ego back into the picture, where universal creation gives birth again to man. And I think that that's what we really have with the Zodiac. And so each of us is at a specific iteration, a specific permutation of every possible combination of these energies with our personal and outer planets. And I think the entire experiment of consciousness of life on Earth is to live every single one of these possibilities, to iterate every possible thing in the simulation until consciousness has experienced every possibility to know itself in the ultimate way. That's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching with energy. So.